Hey everyone, and welcome to this video of my Scion. I'm playing in Affliction League. I decided I want to make use of the Wildwood Ascendancy Warlock class, and so I decided to do some life stacking with the blood magic and insane increased life reservation efficiency that we get with the Warlock Sangomancy, as well as using counterwise flesh to add more physical damage based on our life cost of our attack. I'm using Bladefall of Impaling. This is simply because it's new and I've always wanted to play it. And then the Crimson Power we're also trying to make use of by having Energy Shield on our gear. Uh, you need to have a breakpoint of, judging by your level, I would say 600 Energy Shield baseline before this starts becoming worth it. That is, if your character is level 100, because you lose 6 life per level. So if you get above that, this is definitely worth it. Um, and then for our ascendancy, we did assassin. Reason that I did assassin is you need 100% critical strike chance for your impale to work on your Bladefall of Impaling. And then I used gladiator. Reason for gladiator is a long story, but basically it is very important to understand. We're using Eternal Youth in combination with Dissolution of Flesh. So both of them, you need to take no damage for 2 seconds before you start recharging life and before you start unreserving life that Dissolution of Flesh reserves. Because you have Dissolution of Flesh, Eternal Youth is always on, so we do not need any source of life regeneration other than just having Eternal Youth. We just have to not take damage for 2 seconds for it to work. So block and the assassin's elusive that can make you avoid damage from hits is very useful to accomplish that. So we are not as focused on damage mitigation on this build as we are on just purely avoiding full damage. That being said, that makes things like poison, burning, and any damage over time really important for you to avoid as much as you can on this build. So that's why we're using the Maw of Conquest helmet. This serves multiple purposes. It has nice energy shield, life, unaffected by poison, so you can ignore poison and then recoup. So just one thing to explain with the recoup, if you have more than 30% recoup and you use petrified blood, where is it? That 40% of damage that you avoid from life loss, that you will cover up with 31% recoup. So all you need is a craft on a ring, 10% or 11%, and then 20% on Maw of Conquest, and then you can take a hit of 180% of your max life. All of that is explained in the wiki page of Eternal Youth as well, and it's how it works with the Dissolution of Flesh. So let's just do a quick map just to show you what the build looks like. This is a D10 map. I can do up to D16, but it's not as smooth yet. I'm still working out some of my gear. I'm still uh, just basically getting started with this league, so there's a lot of room to grow. Um, as we go through this, I'll just try and explain some of the, I guess, things you need to be aware of if you choose to try this build out. You definitely do not play this build like a life build. You play it more like an energy shield build, in the sense of that you sometimes need to stop taking damage for a while so your life can get unreserved. So there is some occasions where you need to run away from a fight instead of just life leeching or whatever else you're used to doing to recover your life on life-based builds. So that is the one thing that's very necessary to get used to. The other thing is you need to get used to the feeling of not caring about where your life value is at, and just looking at the reserved section of your life pool. Then as you can see, we have barely any skills on our toolbar, like any abilities, and we have multiple open sockets in our gear. That is because we are using the new necklace, the Untouched Soul, which gives us extra life per red socket that doesn't have anything in, and white sockets give us um, elemental resistances. So that is very fun to use, especially on this build that doesn't need as many utility things as other builds do. If you want to, you can even get rid of shield charge if you don't want to do shield charge. So as you can see, standing in this firestorm, the biggest threat for me is taking constant damage. It's not as much about taking big hits. Therefore, you need to solve damage over time or avoid damage over time as much as possible if you can. So desecrated ground, roll on a map, something you try and avoid. I'm gonna do burning ground immunity with my Pantheon here. I still need to upgrade it so that you are unaffected by burning ground. And then I still need to actually do the freeze avoidance Merveil, which actually I really should have done. But let's go back and I'll go over some more of my gear and gem setup that I have here. So we have the Rathpith Globe. That shield is honestly just perfect synergy with what we're trying to do, which is stacking up life, because it scales everything we need based off of life. We get spell damage and critical strike chance, and this alone is capping out my crit chance. The only critical strike chance that I've taken is this over here, but I am pretty sure I can go ahead and unspec this as soon as I get more regrades. As mentioned with the Bladefall of Impaling, if you want to use the skill, you need to crit in order to impale. If you do not crit, you're not going to impale, and for impale builds, just like poison builds, you need to impale or poison on every hit. So I'm using life tap support with Bladefall of Impaling just to try and get the life cost a little bit higher. That synergizes very well with the cannibalized flesh, gives us extra physical damage. Then I'm using Brutality because we're just doing physical, Spell Echo, Spell Cascade, and Intensify. So I've tried it with Concentrated Effect too, but it just feels really nice to have the Spell Echo and Spell Cascade throwing blades all over the show. You do not need a life flask in this build at all, because of the combination of Eternal Youth always regenerating you with Dissolution of Flesh, so you never need to press a life loss or anything. You just need to watch that your reserve bar doesn't go all the way full. One thing that I would recommend is getting some Corrupted Blood immunity. That should be easy to get on a jewel, as this build has multiple jewel slot access points. I just am not high enough level to take all of the stuff I want yet. This pure talent is pretty cheap this league, since we are connected to the Scion and the Shadow starting point. We can get our crit and attributes pretty easily from this. Once I have enough life and it scales enough with the Rathpith Globe, I probably won't be needing this jewel either, and I would just be able to get more jewels that has something like, that's also a pretty bad jewel, but life and whatever else I want, which would be strength and maybe reduced duration of shock. The reason I say that, let me pull up this page. If you use the Storm Shroud jewel, you can get ailment immunity by getting a chance to avoid shock on your jewels. That can also be found on Abyss jewel, so if you get a Stygian Vice, you can use that on your belt as well. Another jewel with that. Then what else? Yeah, we're trying to scale energy shield, so we're using a Vol Regalia with just as much energy shield as we can. Ideally, you would want this with strength and life on it. The reason we emphasize strength so much as well is obviously it gives us life. Every 2 strength is 1 life, but also we use Iron Will. And we do have a decent bit of strength here, so we get some decent damage from Iron Will as well. Using Cold Iron Point as a dagger, it's super cheap this league. It's like 3 chaos, so that's not much. Nothing else on this gear is super expensive except for the Rathpith Globe. It is, let's say, 2 divines. So that's one that you will need to save for. The rest should all be pretty cheap. Let me check Dissolution of Flesh. Yeah, that's like 40 chaos. Nothing else is expensive. The one thing that you would need to do though, if you want to use the Untouched Soul amulet, you need to get red sockets on a lot of energy shield bases. So to use it, the way you do that is you go for at least 1 red socket, let's say on your boots. That will always make the first socket red. And you keep doing that until you get the first 2 sockets to be red. The reason we want to do that is we are going to use the 2, 3, and 4 socket trick to try and get all the sockets the same color, or the red color we want. So once you get the first 2 sockets to be red, you craft 3 sockets. Then that will either be red, blue, or green. And you just keep going back to 2 and 3 until you get red, and then to 4 and 3 until you get red. That's how I did my boots and my helmet. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So pretty simple scaling build in terms of what to spec. I just try to get some block chance for avoidance, spec as much life as you can, strength as you can, and the rest is pretty much taken care of by your Warlock ascendancy. Some other mentions as abilities you can use just pretty much straight swap out on this build. You just need to update your socket colors. Is Ethereal Knives, Exsanguinate, and Reap. They're all great skills, especially Reap since its life cost is super high. Swap that out just to show you. Let's put life tap on it, 401. And the more, obviously, life you pay for an ability, the stronger your Warlock ascendancy node becomes. Something to note though is if you do use one of these other abilities, the physical spells, you might need to scale into some more critical strike multiplier, since I have not needed to scale any of that now since I cannot do crit multiplier with Bladefall of Impaling. You can also just play this as a damage over time setup as well and do the Gladiator. You can also do Raider or Deadeye if you're doing Ethereal Knives. As a last thing, I just want to quickly run over the rest of my skill gems. So Petrified Blood we've mentioned. I'm using Vulnerability as a curse since I'm doing pure physical spell. Eternal Blessing with Pride, so Pride is 3. What you would do want to get eventually is you want to get a Watcher's Eye jewel that has Impale's last 2 additional hits while affected by Pride. That's going to be a big damage increase. They go for about 9 to 10 divines right now, so they are pretty expensive. That's a late game scaling option. And then we have Shield Charge, Frostblink, and Tempest Shield. The reason I use Tempest Shield is just for a little bit more block chance. You can let this one go if you get shock immunity solved in a different way. Anyway, I think that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, consider to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.